Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Exponential Show. Thanks to our friends at Multiply Marketing for sponsoring this episode. For this episode, we have my close friend, mentor, and for the context of this episode, the president of Saraff Infotech, Transform, and Brands on Road, among the many other roles that he plays. Vijay, thank you for joining us, and I appreciate you taking the time and handling and being patient among all the contingencies that we were facing off camera.
Sure, my pleasure.
So, Vijay, let's dive straight into this. The first question that we've asked all our guests so far is about their journey. So, I've had the pleasure of learning about your journey in bits and pieces, but if you could maybe tell us your superhero origin story of what got you into entrepreneurship and more specifically in the current roles that you play.
All right. So as you know, I'm part of the Saraff Group, and it's part of a family business. So my dad was the one who started this empire. So as you know, it works a little different in the family environment. Mm-hmm. So after I finished my college, my dad was looking at various projects. He's like, let's get you involved in something. And I was very keenly interested in computers. Mm-hmm. So he's like, there's a good opportunity in the computer space called for business process outsourcing. Mm-hmm. So that's where the first step came in, right? We then evaluated a project, then we launched that. So that's where Saraff Infotech was born. Mm-hmm. It was right after college. And as you know, when you start out, you really don't know anything. You have no clue what we're doing. You just do play by wire experience. But then we hired some good people, and then they helped me learn like what business is all about. How do we go about marketing? How do we go about operations, managing? I already knew how to manage all the technical parts of things, but learning all the human parts of organizations and how to make it work, that's how I started. And it was a struggle in the beginning, obviously, since you're new, 6 months, we just had to go to the office with no work, no clients, nothing. Get everything set up, but waiting for customers. And that's when, you spend a lot of time to market and digital. At that time, it was through email marketing that, we got our first few customers.
Right.
And that started the ball rolling. Then we went on the shows, that kind of thing. So once we had started Saraff Infotech, we had many other initiatives in the middle that we tried, didn't work out. Then once we moved offices from that to this location, I started managing the real estate holdings that we have here as well. Mm-hmm. And that was a very small, real estate doesn't take a lot of effort in the office side, but it does take a lot of effort from marketing and presentation side.
Right.
So when I took over, we had barely 30 to 40% occupancy. Mm-hmm. And I was able to set up a good team, good systems, and we were able to grow that and then completely, get it to 99% or 100% occupancy within a few years.
Nice.
And after that, I was keenly interested in startups. Mm-hmm. So I was really excited about the stories because I was there in the US till about 2002, mm-hmm. which is where the dot-com boom and bust happened.
Right.
And I was very interested in software, etc., and technical side. And I studied as an engineer. So technical things have always been one of my key interests because it's a tool for understanding the world, right?
Right.
And manipulating reality according to how you want things to happen. What did we do then? So after holding, then we started doing investing, ventures, Mm-hmm. So because I got interested in startups, I took a break. I went to India for a while. I worked in the VC firm mm-hmm. for a couple of years to understand how the startup business works, mm-hmm. Like how do they get funding, how do they raise capital, how do they grow, and then it got me good exposure. Then we came back and we started out and branched out and made a bunch of investments mm-hmm. across various startups. And as you know, in startups, there's a very high mortality rate.
That is true.
So that's what we experienced as well. So we learned a lot from there. And we made good investment there. Then I decided to do our own startup called Brands on Road, where we put this taxi top. It was basically a copycat model, like take a successful business model from elsewhere and try to replicate it here. I learned many things doing that startup. I mean, doing something from scratch, always you learn more than if you take a ready-made system in hand. Mm-hmm. and how to manage the team, set up lean operations, manage all these external factors, etc. And that brings me to present day, where we have all managed all these companies. And what I found is having good team supporting you, training them, having good systems in place, incentives. It really works in keeping all the things flowing smoothly together.
Interesting. So you've dabbled in a lot of different areas and have gathered experience from different industry verticals, different countries, working with different types of people, different types of technology. So it's been from what I gather, a very interesting journey so far. So hooking on to one specific thing that you mentioned at the beginning of your story is the fact that you come from a family business background, and then weighing it against the dichotomy of also being interested in startups. So how have you managed that? And it's something that a lot of successful family businesses in Thailand are currently undergoing, where they're innovating from within. So almost like setting up startups from within family businesses, whether it is in related verticals, unrelated verticals.
Right.
So how has your experience been unique in the way of innovating from within a family business?
Right. Well, I mean, if you think about it conceptually, startups are just it's a concept around some activity that we've been doing anyway, right?
Right.
People have been doing this kind of work all the time. It just hasn't been like as linked with the external world before. Like everybody would get proposals,
True.
As a family business, if you have any sufficient cash flow left, you will always get people who will come to you and be like, I need some money to do this project. I need to do this project, and you evaluate proposals.
Right.
That's what it's like an investment banking firm as well, right? I mean, you evaluate a lot of proposals, then you consider your own abilities and passions and what you can do, what you can contribute to it, and that's how you do it. And that's how it worked with this also. Like I said, the proposal came in first, so we had many proposals that they were looking at, and they just put the word out in the network to see, like, okay, we're looking to do something in this space. Any ideas or things, and then we explored. So that's essentially. So startup family business is just exploring different ideas. You go around, you see the world, you see the ideas that you attract you see what holds your interest, and then you pursue it. So that's essentially what we did, and that's how we got started on this journey.
Interesting.
Obviously, it was not smooth. It was a very bumpy journey, because a lot of stories happened there.
I can imagine, but there's obviously pros and cons to each way of approaching things. Right? So it's but thank you for sharing that. You've talked about splitting your time between different verticals, different types of businesses. Out of them, which are the ones that you're spending the most time on right now, and what excites you about their present and their future?
Okay. So what's really interesting now is that, as you can see, technology has changed a lot. I mean, since we've been in the business, it's ever growing at an accelerated pace, and the stuff I knew from when I studied, I had to spend a lot of time reading and keeping up to date with a lot of technology that is out there. So what's exciting is this, that computers are now more capable than ever before, as they call it AI these days. And that is impacting all sorts of businesses. In fact, I had this idea about having an AI for organizations to preserve institutional knowledge, policies, procedures, culture, and pass it on to all the new members who join an organization. Well, that was one of the biggest challenges I faced, is working in a knowledge-based company, where you need to have certain knowledge to be able to do the work effectively.
Right.
How do you retain that knowledge? And this is where one of the problems I was trying to solve was thinking of this concept called Monk AI, which was where it would hold a database repository of information about the company, about its procedures, policies, its past, and direction, strategy. And you could chat with it and understand it. It could be like a guide, a mentor. If you play video games, you always have this tutorial,
Right.
A guide who helps you along. And even in life, we have our parents who guide us, those kind of things. So I was thinking like a tool like this, which, because things with technology and tools is that they can stay with you, right? You can use them as long as you want, and they can help guide. And that's what I was very excited about. And Now with the explosion, we see that I wasn't the only one who had the. Many people had the same idea.
This random person called Sam Altman was also working on it.
No, absolutely. So they obviously cracked the one of the key bottlenecks in the issue and solved it. I'm very excited to see that, like the impact of all of this on the future. So in services especially, because I'm primarily focused on the service industry, because we provide services to our clients.
Right.
And that's where I see that there's a lot of room, because I used to do manually adjustment. I used to manually tune up the processes, the technology, and the parameters so that it becomes more efficient, less error prone, more resilient. But now, if we have these kind of tools in the middle, it will help increase efficiency or reduce errors, improve quality checks, those are kind. And we are currently building a lot of software to do these kind of things.
Interesting.
So I've looked the market and we couldn't find the software that does exactly what we need, So that's why we're building our own. So it has a multiple layers working together to give us the desired result.
Interesting. So I look forward to how that turns out.
Yeah. We, in fact, actually just had the proof of concept finished, and now we have it deployed. Now we have to integrate it into the software that we're building so that we can deploy it in the real world.
Interesting. I'm glad that's coming to fruition, because you've shared about this idea and this vision for quite some time now. So
yes.
I'm glad that it is coming to life. So I look forward to your version of Jarvis or whatever of how that turns out. Shifting gears here a little bit, Vijay, is I know that you've worked in different geographies, worked with people in different geographies, but you and I both call Thailand home. So what specifically have you seen about the Thai startup / business ecosystem that maybe brings to mind certain challenges or certain opportunities that are very local in nature that you have observed during your journey here?
Right. Yes, Thailand is definitely a challenging environment to work in, because the networks here are very well defined. They've been operating in this country for a long time. So as a new entrant, it's very tough to make an appearance, or so you either need a lot of money, connections, or some sponsors to help you move along those paths. And the startup ecosystem here, but it's good. There's been plenty of sponsors who motivate the young generation to come and try out, and that's what is important, right? You just want to give opportunities to the next generation.
True.
That's what you want in a startup ecosystem. That if there's no opportunity to fail, to try, then there's no opportunity to succeed either.
That is true.
And that's the important part, that young kids are given the opportunities, and it happens over here. But it is a challenge. Like, you have to know people, and the local language is a must. You cannot exist in Thailand if you do not know the local language. Well, you can exist, but it's much more challenging, that's for sure. So if you want to make it, you have to learn to interface with the local culture, the local staff, and be able to meet all the people over here. And that's it.
Makes sense. Interesting. Yeah. So the language part, I promise you I'm working on. So thanks for that context, Vijay. Now, diving into perhaps what I imagine would be your favorite question of the list is, you've talked about how technology has impacted our lives in general, and specifically service-related verticals that you operate in. But widening the canvas here, so there's been a lot of tech developments recently, AI obviously being one of them, and there's stuff like blockchain and stuff that is non-AI, but a lot of SaaS companies and things like that coming up. So within the wide spectrum of technology, even perhaps outside service verticals, what are the things that excite you the most about the future, or any new emerging trends that you see that you're excited about or curious about how they pan out?
In terms of the technology?
Technology and its impact on our lives, our work, things of that nature.
That's a good question. As I'm sure everybody knows, as you go through life, you meet people with different abilities, different experiences, different skills. And sometimes you have a very unique perspective on your own set, right? But you don't get that much insight into other people's skills. And with the new modern technology, it's becoming easier and easier to access other people's skills.
Right.
That is the biggest thing that has happened, right? I mean, the internet, we saw the internet come up in our generation.
Right.
Now we are seeing smartphones, then we saw the smartphones. Now we are seeing AI. So what I'm seeing is that we are all reaching to that point where we have this internal guiding force, right? All human beings, we have this, our mind that tells us to do things, our emotions that make us feel things and react in certain ways. It's like a guiding force.
Right.
Similarly, now we can have these systemic guiding forces that exist outside of us, but that we can vet, that we can approve, and then we can be like, okay, this is the kind of future we want to create. So you create systems like that, which can be like a personal guiding force for individuals, for organization, taking them on a journey, right? And that is what people are selling these days. They tell you that, join my program, I'll teach you how to do this in 21 days,
right.
or join this, I'll do that. So humans have always been guiding each other because we never work alone. We always work in a collaborative. We work in society, we always collaborate with others. And that is the key. Like, if we can all work together, improve our skills and improve others, that is what will, make all of us grow and become better. And having smartphones plus AI in everybody's hand, you can reduce a lot of that skill disparity or the gap, where they can leverage benefits from people. Like, I love that, there's an app that helps blind people in shopping. So a blind person can just go on their phone and click help, and a person who can see can go on the video call and explain to them what they're seeing.
Interesting.
So now, so that's one way we leveraged it. So similarly, you can leverage these skills of other people, and not just people, but technology itself nowadays. As you know, like the LLMs, the large language models,
right.
They have become so sophisticated. They can read and understand real world through images, through text, through video, much more efficiently now. But there's still errors, obviously. There's still a long way to go to fix all of that. But that's what I'm thinking is the future, in that we develop this system that helps guide all of us in a more universal way, rather than relying on systems that exist in your country, in your family, in your city, or tied to a specific area.
That's interesting. But I think that's still slightly far down the horizon in terms of...
I mean, well, if you look at Khan Academy, they're doing that, right? They're democratizing access to a lot of resources and systems that allow people then to upskill themselves or learn about the world in a good way.
Yeah, it's interesting and something definitely to think about in terms of democratization of knowledge that you alluded to. There's a few things that I've heard in this conversation and conversations that I've previously had with you. So you've emphasized on, obviously systems is something that I know for a fact that you're a big fan of. Then obviously there's, you always bring up things like education and teaching, and just how humans learn and observe is something that you're interested in. So how do you implement those ethos or those areas of interest into the work that you do with your companies?
Right. So that is one of the more challenging aspects, right? I mean, what I see is the way I do it is you sit with a person, right? You understand what their needs are, where they have questions, queries, concerns, and you try to address those. And you try to make them the trainer, right? Because I found that when teaching others, you learn more. That's always been a way of increasing your skill level by learning to guide others as well. So what I do is I have all my team always prepare training materials for the next person or whoever else will be doing like in their team, and help each other out and give them tips and techniques that they use themselves. That are intuitive for them, but you see your colleagues struggle with. Like I'm sure you know in Excel, like this is very common, right? Shortcuts and these kind of things. Like I get frustrated often when I watch people using computer and they're being very inefficient, you know. But if you spend enough time on it, you know that okay, you have to use these shortcuts. You can do a task that would take many seconds in like a fewer time with lesser cognitive load. And that's what I try to encourage people to do, like train, find out these things that they can find useful, and train others in their team to use the same.
Interesting. So yeah, that's I think a good approach. Just I think even in terms of efficiency of the team and making best use of our times as well. The last topic, Vijay, that I want to touch upon today is any general piece of advice that you have for A, startups, especially here in Thailand, and B, other ecosystem players, whether it's people like investors or even people who are in the government or making legislation about startups. So any pieces of advice you have for both these vertical startups and people who are working around the world of startups?
It's a good question. Well, what do you say? So my biggest advice is know yourself, right? This is what I found. I've gone through this journey, and I found that if you just sit quietly for 10 minutes a day, and with intention that you're just going to be quiet and just observe everything. Just this intention of observation and sitting quietly can help unravel a lot of the stress, ideas, etc. So my advice is always that, take the time out for yourself every day. Just 10 minutes, sit quietly and do nothing. And you will see your mind will generate these random ideas. You just have to recognize them, right? And this is what I've also seen, that experience is vast, right? Every moment you're experiencing so many puts of data, but we are like compression algorithms. We just compress, we just keep parts of it that we want.
Right.
So you be very clear on what you want. That way you can extract the most from experience and store that in your memory and use that. Because a lot of time what I find is that people just store in memory stuff they've heard from other people secondhand, and a lot of things that are not really relevant or true, but they make that the fact of their existence. It becomes a part of their reality,
right.
But it is more important to judge reality based on your own experience. The others can just be like signals for you to pay attention in certain areas, but you have to be there to experience it. So same for startups, like sitting in a classroom, just thinking about a situation will never give you the insights that you need. You have to be in the same place as where the problem is, in the same space. Only then you will see that what happens, what is actually going on. And if you just sit quietly and observe, that's a very good way of solving problems and getting answers as well.
Interesting. Yeah. So self-reflection is a skill to have if you're
Absolutely. It's a must. I mean, that's how we've solved most of our problems, by examining things just in solitude. Especially governments and everything, they make a lot of legislation, but the people making legislation, they're not in the context, in the situation.
Right.
They need to immerse themselves in the situation for their mind to generate the right kind of responses.
Interesting. So, yeah, that's, I think, useful advice for people throughout the entire startup value chain. So I hope people are listening. So I think that brings us to the end of our conversation, Vijay. Just wanted to thank you again for taking the time. Thank you for all the support and guidance you provide to myself and my team off camera as well. So we're always appreciative of that. Any final words that you want to convey to our audiences?
The only last words I would just say is just understand yourself first, right? I mean, that's what they say, right? And if you understand the true nature of your experience, it is much easier to deal with all of reality and figure out what kind of response everything needs. And that is the one thing that everybody should be doing. Perfect.
I think I couldn't have found a better way to end this. Thank you, Vijay, again for your time. And I will obviously keep speaking with you more after this.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you in the next episode.